Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to make a start on a still life project, and for many of you, if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know that most of the time I'm working from photo reference. So today I want to start a different challenge. It's been a long time since I got the opportunity to work from life, so I'm going to set myself up a still life and create something different. From this, I'll be making a demo so that you can paint along with me if you want. But before that, I thought that I would actually take you through my process in setting up a still life composition, as it's not as easy as it may look. So I hope that you enjoy this. Please do subscribe here on YouTube if you do, and check out all my other videos on my channel. I also have a Patreon channel where you can get much more in-depth tutorials to learn how to pastel. But I hope that you enjoy this. So this is the composition that I've come up with, and this is what I would like to paint from life. I quite like how it looks. I like the colours and the dramatic lighting and shadows, and it also pays homage to my great love of tea. But I want to break this down for you and show you, especially if you're working on a budget, how you can get quite a professional little setup with very little cost. So let's take this apart and show you what I've done. So the objects are the first thing that you might want to decide on. I wanted to do something with some nice simple shapes, some shiny objects, things that would cast shadows and light nicely. So I'll get to the objects in a moment, but I wanted to also show you the little stage setup that I've created. And it really helps if you can make something like this to enclose your objects a little bit, be able to control the lighting a bit easier. And the main thing that I really wanted to include in this still life was some nice fabric to give it some nice flowing folds and some colour. So the first thing I did though, to create my little stage, and this is just some cardboard packaging. I got an art delivery this week and it came in just the right size and shape of box. So I literally just taped it up like this, took one side off of it, and then to create less reflection inside, I just used some black spray paint and spread the three walls of it. If you're going to do something similar, make sure that you take it outside, because spray paints like this are rather smelly. So I took this outside and spread that. Then, even if you don't have any interesting fabrics to hand, I really wanted something nice and vibrant. So I'm actually using a skirt of mine, and I pretty much wanted to use this because of how nicely it sits in folds and how you can arrange the folds quite attractively. Also because it has a waistband at the top like this. It quite easily hangs over the top of my cardboard stage. And then from here I can just start to arrange the fabric a little bit before putting any of my objects in. I've also purposely set it here so that the fabric might fall over the edge of my desk like this. This, you can see, is the edge of my easel here, and that's where I'm going to be working, so I'll have just a good view of this area. And I want to try and include in the composition a little bit of the idea of this fabric coming over the edge of the table. And with this part, I'm trying not to make too many complicated folds. The more you do, the more difficult it's going to be to paint. So I'm trying to make it interesting but not too difficult at the same time. So once I have that, I can start adding in some of my objects. The first things that I really wanted to include were the little teapot and my cup of tea. And with this, you really just want to spend some time and play with the composition, putting them closer together, further apart, tilting things. Just really play about with the composition and see what looks nice. So these were the first two objects that I brought into the composition, and what I really thought was missing was a little bit of height at the back of the composition. And also, because it's only two objects, sometimes it's nice to have an odd number of things. So 3 is often a magic number. Sometimes 2 objects or 4 objects can look a little bit strange. So I thought I would bring in some of my tea, and because the colours of this look pretty nice with this composition, I thought I would just pop that in the background and add a little bit of height. So although we do get a little bit of height with the fabric going up in the background like that, I think this dark object behind just helps add a little bit more interest to the piece. So yeah, just play about with that until you're happy. Then the next problem that I have to solve is how to light it, because at the moment I'm just using my daylight lamp to show you guys. But I really don't want to light it from directly above, as that's a bit boring. It doesn't create very many nice, interesting shadows. So I'll turn my daylight off and show you where I've got my other lamp set up. So now I'm not even using any kind of fancy lighting. This is just one of the little lamps that I've got in my studio, and it's got quite a handy clamp on it so I can put it anywhere. And I've literally just attached it onto the back of my easel here in a place that I can position the lamp just to peep around the corner and light all of this from one side. So let's turn that on and see what that does. So I wanted the lighting to be quite dramatic. I want the objects to be lit from the side so that they cast some interesting shadows. So I think this is what I'm gonna go with. So it's always good to experiment with your lighting. It really depends what effect you yourself are after, whether you want dramatic shadows, and experiment with how high or how low you put the light. It will all give you different effects. But you can see from this setup that it's really not expensive to do this, and the fun thing is you can work with whatever objects you like in your own home. So somewhere in this there's a nice composition, and now it's just a case of me moving things around slightly. I can further adjust the folds in the fabric until I'm happy with that. As I said, I really like when it bends over the front of the table or the desk things are sitting on. Another thing, just trying to adjust how the light is catching everything. I think the teapot is a little bit in the shadows, so just bringing it around a little bit so that the little spout catches a bit more of the light would be nice. So yeah, just minor tweaks now until I'm happy with the composition. I'm trying to create a sort of L shape in the composition, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to crop it more portrait shaped than the landscape shape that you see here. So another tip that I'll show you now is how I decide on the actual crop that I'm going to include in the painting. So the next thing that I like to do when I get it to a stage that I'm happy with is to take a few snaps of it. Although I'm going to be working from life, sometimes it's just helpful to see it in 2D to help you visualize how you're going to crop it within your photograph. Also, just as a safety precaution, because although I want to work from life, who knows, anything could happen. The cat could come in here and jump in the middle of this, spill the tea all over my skirt. Who knows? So at least I'll have some snaps of this setup should anything happen to it. Or if you're working at home and you don't have much studio space, perhaps you can't leave it set up like this the whole time you're painting, and just taking some snaps to work from will be very helpful. So it really helps me just to see how I might view this, from what angle I might view it, and it helps me just decide what's going to make the most pleasing painting. And at this stage, just seeing it flattened into 2D like this, I can perhaps make a few other minor adjustments. So I will share these photographs with you. If you want to work along with me, you're more than welcome to. But I hope that in this video that you will get some tips and ideas on how you could set up your own still life at home and pay homage to some of your favourite objects. So to quickly recap my top tips for setting something like this up. Firstly, create that little stage area where you can help to visualise the crop of the painting that you're going to create. It also helps to eliminate any other light sources that might affect the light and shade within the composition. You should try to use one good directional light source, casting nice light and shadows in the piece. And I would also suggest using objects that aren't too difficult. I've tried to keep it quite geometric shapes for this piece. I have some lovely pot plants that I would love to include in a still life, but they're really quite complex when you start to look closely. So I've gone with very geometric shapes where I can make the most of those lovely reflections and the shadows being cast. So if it's your first still life, don't go overboard in choosing really complicated items to draw. I would also suggest not using perishable items if it's your early attempts at still life. Again, I would love to include some fruit, but I fear that it might be rotten by the time I get finished. So next time maybe I'll be braver to include some perishable items, but for this, I can leave this sitting for as long as it takes me. And lastly, really play with your composition. Experiment a little bit and see how it looks through a viewfinder to help you. I hope that in this video you can see that it's not an expensive thing to try and do. It just takes a little bit of fiddling about to get the composition that you like. But it's great practice to do this, and it's great practice for your compositional skills. So as I said, I'm going to start work on this. I'm going to make a video from the very beginning showing you how I sketch it out as well, so you can follow along from beginning to end. I hope that you'll tune back in when I have that released and you'll be able to follow the whole process. So I'll probably play with this a little bit more and then make a start on sketching it out. And I hope that you'll call back and see how I'm getting on. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button below this video. Really helps me out to show your support to the channel. Lots more videos on my channel here if you'd like all of my tips on painting in pastel. And of course, my patrons, who are some of the ones who asked for this type of video. Those guys are learning from me over on my Patreon channel, where I've got my full catalogue of in-depth tutorials and lots more. It's thanks to those guys that I can take time out of my commissions and my other work and have a play with stuff like this. So I hope that you will tune back in with me soon, and I'm going to go and make a start. Until next time, happy pasteling.